International Overdose Awareness Day is a global event held on the 31st of August each year and aims to raise awareness of overdose and reduce the stigma of a drug-related death. It also acknowledges the grief felt by families and friends, remembering those who have met with death as a result of drug overdose. Overdose Day events are held around the world. They range from community education campaigns to community vigils. Overdose Day spreads the message that the tragedy of overdose death is preventable, and one of the ways we can help is to wear silver to show our support. The theme for 2015 is Rethink and Remember.
My name's Joe Dillon from the Hope Project. Just looking at this poster here. There's a whole lot of range of stuff on the poster here when all the drug marches and all started. This is Joseph Manchin's here earlier on. It says heroin, the angel of death, stuff like that. And then they were the drug marches as well. And stuff like that. About when we got the monument going, we needed to get a monument going because the people was dying around here were heroin for so long. And there was nothing. No legacy left of them or anything like that. So we decided as parents and workers around the community to get together and get a monument together. We set the monument there, the Monument of Hope. I was on the committee with it as well, with a lot of other community activists as well. But you see me there putting little mementos, people that died from drugs and all like that, into the furnace, to putting them into the monument and stuff like that. And that's the monument that's outside there now. There's no names on it. We never wanted to put names on it because every week there was people dying and the sculpture would have been back around every week putting names and names. So to this day, there's hundreds and hundreds of names on that. We'd have never got all the names on it. But as I said, it's a monument of hope to the people from the area. Remembers those that died from the area. And a lot of people that died in this small community from heroin. As just showing you the poster there. Joseph Manchin was the biggest drug den in Ireland, which was standing in now Killarney Court, which has been redeveloped, beautiful place. We had to do that monument for them, remember those that died from drugs. And that's what it's all about. And that they're not forgotten, you know what I mean? And you know, and then some of the parents, wherever they meet, family members around, come down to the monument and just look and reflect back to the son or daughter who died. And you know that there's a ring, a watch, a medal, whatever it may be, in that monument. You know, as you see me putting stuff into the furnace, all the rings and the medals, the little mementos, when we were doing the furnace over by the man doing the monument. And it reminds us of the people that did die, you know what I mean? And as I said, there's hundreds gone, a lot of families have affected around here. But as I said, where I work in the office here, it's just right outside the monument is, and it reminds you of those that died. This won't go away. This won't go away. Drugs will never go away. You know what I mean? Drugs are here to stay. Don't let anyone tell you that they would. Drugs is here to stay. There's too much money in drugs, involved in drugs. And drugs won't go away. It's just to have these services opened up. Like our service, the Hope, the sales services, the Merchants Keys, Ukrainian services, all this, ACRG, all these services opened to help these people try and get a better life for themselves. That's what we do here in Hope. Day-to-day basis, as I said, nearly all those people that died, I knew all of them. And I can just look at that monument and I can reflect back, you know, as just one individual. Then you see mothers and fathers from the community and brothers and sisters looking at that monument. They know, as I said, their brothers, their sisters, their fathers, or their mothers' rings, mementos is in that monument. There's a piece of them still in this community that won't go away, and it never will, and the people in the community won't let it go away, because this community suffered very, very badly. For us, as I said, we plug along and just plod along, do the best we can with everyone and helping people.
I look back and I kind of reminisce about how things used to be, and there's a lot of changes. I mean, for example, I remember very clearly in the summer of 1995 when I started working in North Inner City, there had been a couple of deaths from suicide-related, or overdose-related, not quite sure what, but the number of deaths, particularly in the month of July, which was particularly shocking for the community. And I look now and I see the amount of deaths that are happening on a sort of a weekly basis at the moment in communities, and that sense of shock is gone. But I think, if I remember correctly, there were something like 3 or 4 deaths in that month of July, which was sort of one a week, which had just not happened in that way before, and it felt like it was an epidemic. And now we see deaths from drug use. I mean, 2012 figures are 630 odd or something for the year, and that's not shocking. That's an incredible difference. And I think in some way what's happened over those years is that it's become more normalised, that you expect that deaths will occur from drug use, or whether that be in the form of poisons or overdose, or whether that be in form of suicides, or accidental overdose or deliberate overdose. Nobody's ever really sure. I suspect that most overdoses or poisoning are accidental. I don't think generally people choose that as a way of exiting this world, if that's what they feel that they need to do at the time. But when I look at now the amount of deaths that there are from overdoses and the amount of deaths there were 20 years ago, it's incredible. We just don't have that sense of outrage. But at the same token, what we don't have is that same sense of stigma. Yes, it was shocking. Yes, it was different. Communities kind of talked about it in hushed tones, but it was a kind of a catalyst for communities to start coming together and saying, we have to do something about this. And I think over the years, what has evolved through that process, and I just don't know if this is a good or a bad thing. I mean, I think for the grieving communities and the communities that have lost members and the families that have lost people, I think of course it's a good thing that it can be acknowledged, and that there are now what you'd see is it's quite normal to see annual events or in communities where they're bringing families of overdose victims or drug death victims together, acknowledging that these were beautiful children of ours, or human beings. These are good people, and that they were victims of this, and that was certainly something that wasn't there in the earlier days. And I think that's a positive thing, and I think that gives expression to a community. I mean, if you look at something like the Hope Monument in the North Inner City, that's a typical example. There is now a very physical focal point where people can go, can contemplate, can think, but also if you drive by, you see it. It's in your face, so it's not hidden away. And that has to be good for people's psyche. The other side of it is, though, it almost becomes, is that making it more normal or more acceptable? Why aren't we shocked anymore? Why aren't we screaming and shouting and saying this shouldn't happen? Because it shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be allowing this to happen. What is wrong with our society, with our policies? What is it that's allowing this to become normalised? The stigma is definitely, I think, is still there, but maybe communities themselves have kind of absorbed it a bit, and I think it's good that they're able to, at least the families and good friends of people are able to express that and able to talk about their children in a way that they weren't. Because that's really important to say, because that pain is dreadful, to lose a child through drug use. It's absolutely horrific to lose a child in any circumstances, but to lose a child in which you're ashamed and you can't discuss it must be just horrific. So if you can discuss it, I think that makes it better. But I'm not so sure what it's doing for communities. I'm just worried that communities are taking it on so much, normalising it so much, and are being left to handle it. That's a good thing. I think I'm just don't know where the outrage has gone. We should still be shocked. We should still be angry. We should still be outraged, and we should still be talking about it, and we should still be saying this has got to stop.
My daughter's name is Fiona, and growing up, she's a very intelligent girl. In school, she would have been one of the top 3 all through primary school. and everything going grand. She had a little sister 3 years younger, and the normal ups and downs of family life. She started using heroin at 16, and that was like lighting a piece of paper and just watching the flames engulf it. The whole family was plunged into the horror of Fiona's addiction after that, and we had social workers, the guards, the school got involved, and eventually Fiona stayed out all night, different places, and stayed in hostels. Through that, I loved her. I completely loved her. And she became pregnant at 18, which was wonderful because she kind of settled down for a little while. She gave birth to a beautiful little baby in the Rotunda, and he was the light in our life, but he was sent to foster care from the Rotunda, which broke our hearts. And I just remember hanging his little clothes on the line, and I said, if I get over this, I live to deal with anything, because he was just so precious, the little boy. But after 3 weeks, Fiona got him back, and everything was going great until she used heroin when he was 3 months old. Or she used cocaine, I should say, when he was 3 months old. And the baby was taken from her again. And he was sent to a wonderful foster family. Fiona continued down a spiral. She was chaotic around drugs, and she would have used cocaine up to 12 times a night. So we had access to the baby, and she had access to the baby, and she was a wonderful mother. I will say that she was absolutely wonderful. But she continued her drug use, and she would have overdosed several times, and she tried to take her own life several times. And also Fiona would go missing for weeks on end, and nobody could tell us where she was because she was over 18 at that stage, and nobody would give her information. The only people that would give me any information would be her friends, fellow drug users on the street, that would tell me that they saw her and she's okay or whatever. They were very, very good to me. And of course, during all that time, I joined family support, which was the best thing I ever did, because there I found friends and people that would support me. And I will never ever forget the weeks we spent in Merchant's Quay, you know, on the quay there on a Tuesday night, and we'd all be there and people going by and not knowing what was going on in this little room there, that we were all there pouring our hearts out. But anyhow, Fiona went missing for probably a few weeks, and then she got a social worker to ring to say she was coming up to the house. And I said, that's grand, she was very welcome. And she called up that particular night, and she caused uproar in the house, absolute uproar. She said horrible things. Her dad had died 4 months previously. He was killed in a road traffic accident. She didn't want to live, she wanted to be with her dad. He was the only one that ever loved her or cared for her, and we didn't care about her or anything else. Went off anyway, in very, 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 very in an acute stage of anger. She went off, and I rang her accommodation where she was staying, but they couldn't tell me anything because she was over 18. So I went off and I looked for her and couldn't find her anywhere. And I came back at about 2 in the morning, and I just remember saying, there's something different about this, and I can't go on living like this. I was completely selfish about it. I can't go on living with the horror that was Fiona, unfortunately. So I went in, I work in a school, I went into school the next day as normal, and when I came home, 2 guards came to see me to tell me that Fiona had died. That she had taken, what I didn't know at the time, she spent the night in a hostel, and she was on 80 mils of methadone, and she had taken 900 mils of methadone. I believe that Fiona handed her life back to God because she couldn't continue the way her life was going. I was completely devastated, absolutely devastated. And I remember I went back to work a month later, and I could cope during the day, and then Friday I would go into a church on the way home, and I'd sit at the back of the church because I didn't know what to do. On Friday evening I didn't know what to do all day Saturday, I didn't know what to do all day Sunday, and I would sit and I'd cry and cry and cry in the church, because even something like what'll I get for the dinner couldn't even focus on how to do anything at all. But I have a wonderful family and wonderful friends, and they carried me through everything, and I have a huge faith. So I miss her every single day. I miss her, she was a great mimic. I miss her coming up the road, I miss her sayings, I miss her expressions, I miss everything about her. Even the chaos. I miss it all. There were days in the beginning, and there's still some days when I think I won't survive the whole thing of Fiona's addiction, and the whole thing of the way she lived her life and her death. I didn't think at the beginning I would survive it, and sometimes I don't think I will now. But friends are great, and I keep very, very busy. And I have a lot of hobbies as well, but at the end of the day you close your door and you are on your own, and then all these thoughts come in.
Yeah, when I overdosed, my friend came into my room, and I knew I was going to an overdose slowly, but I came out of it. I tried to bring myself out of it, and she was in my sitting room, so she could hear me, and she came in, but I was actually gone purple at the time, and she laid me on the ground and put me on my side, called staff came up, and they just caught me in time, like, do you know what I mean? So they basically saved my life, you know. So, like, but before that, I've once, in my years of addiction, I've ever only overdosed once. Yeah, when I overdosed, I injected heroin. Yeah, I injected heroin, and my brother was there, and I'd say only for my brother I would have been dead, because the people that I was around, like, they wouldn't have, you know, they were all out of their heads, where I was only starting off, and like, you wouldn't normally usually hear of addicts starting off for the first time using heroin injecting. You'd normally start off smoking it, and that's what I done. I started off smoking it, and then it was I injected first before I overdosed that time, when my brother did save my life, and then the second time I injected, but the person that cooked it up was into heroin years and years, like before I ever even heard about heroin, and so he cooked up two hits, one for me and one for him, and he injected me, and I was sitting on the couch, and I was overdosed, like, so my brother tore me up off the couch, and he brought me over by the sink and just kept throwing water, cold spit, slapping the face off me. I've been around people a few times that have overdosed in front of me, and it is a frightening experience, it is, and I've often had to stay there with them and phone an ambulance, and like, this could have been in some apartment complex, like, where we could have been up to sixth floor, and I'd have to be like there with her or him when they overdosed, and I'd have to run down to, because the ambulance wouldn't know where to go, what apartment complex it was. So I had to run down like 6 flights of stairs, like, when she overdosed, and I knew like, and her sister was there at the time, and when she overdosed, like, but and I knew her sister, and I said she's going to overdose, like, it was her first time she had ever injected it into her groin, and she overdosed, and I said she's going to go, I said she's going to overdose, because I knew her eyes started rolling, and all of a sudden she was gone. And she would have been dead, like, only for me, on the ambulance anyway. So I had to run down, and a man had to come out of his apartment. So he says, "Are you looking for an ambulance?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "Will you please?" And I asked the man, "Would he please hold the door open for him downstairs?" So I ran down and I stood at the door, so they see me, and they came up, and they saved her life anyway. And she woke up, I have to laugh this one, she woke up like, I know I shouldn't have to laugh, but she woke up out of, she came out of the overdose anyway, and she goes, "For fuck's sake," she says, "now my stone is gone," you know. And I said, "To mind your stone," I said, you were actually dead, I said, you know what I mean, I said, "You're lucky," I said, "You're even standing on your 2 feet right now." The ambulance men gave her whatever they do, they brought her around, and I've seen a lot of people overdose, and in here, and I've seen many people like being taken away in body bags out of here from overdoses, and like, I've been to many funerals from here, from good friends of mine that I've met and became good friends with in here, and got caught up in addiction, and they've died. A good few friends of mine have passed away from in here. Like, yeah, it's hard sometimes. Like, I think, you know, and like, yeah, I sometimes I sit back and I think, one night, New Year's Eve night, it would have been 2 years ago, New Year's Eve night, and I still always think of this. This man, he was from Cork, and it was nearly it was 12 o'clock the night of the bells it was, and he was the first person to knock on my door to wish me Happy New Year's Eve, and I had met him again on the corridor at 2:30 that morning. And he was over in his room with a friend, and they had been snorting heroin, and he wasn't a heroin user until he was here, and he got caught up in it anyway, and they were snorting it that night. So his friend had left the room at 2:45 to go to his own room to get some tobacco, and he was dead. And when his friend went back and knocked on the door, he got no answer. So he had thought that he had gone into bed and gone to sleep, but he was found the next morning inside in the toilet. He was after overdosing, like, he was dead within that few minutes of his friend going to his own room, across the other corridor and back. He was dead within that few minutes, yeah. So like, I was thinking, like, my God, if I had went in there that night for a few minutes with him when they asked me in, like, I could nearly probably have saved his life. I could have got an ambulance called straight away, and they could have probably saved his life. Do you know what I mean? I always still think of that, like, and I have 1 or 2 things that were given to me in remembrance of him, because I was very, very close to him, like, yeah. You know, and he wasn't even from Limerick, like, but just when he came here, like, we just became very, very friendly and very close, you know. And yeah, it was a very sad experience for me that time now, and like, and I have a lot of friends that have passed away from overdoses and from suicide and that as well, like, I have, yeah. So it's not easy, like, it's hard, you know.
Well, I would have started taking drugs myself probably at about 17 or 18. Like, I had a very, very sheltered upbringing where I was kept away from all that kind of stuff going out, and I'm absolutely sure that if I was left out at a younger age, I probably would have started off at a younger age, and I might not be here today, you know. But from the very offset, like, I was taking stuff at a ridiculous level. Like, it was as much as I could get, and as much money as I had, and as much as I could rob and steal. You know, the second I left home, like, it didn't matter what it was. I just had to have it. Like, my first overdose was it was loads of prescription tablets. I never knew what they were. I just remember being invited into a fellow alcoholic's home, and he'd been fired from, like, a factory that used to make these tablets previously, and he had access to loads of them still, and they were just lying around the house. And I didn't willingly take an overdose, but I kind of knew when I was taking them, you know, that I didn't know what they were, and that they could be really dangerous tablets. And I took loads of them, absolutely loads. And I remember waking up the next day, or probably the day after, and I couldn't see straight. Like, I had double vision for the entire day, and I was absolutely petrified. Like, walking across the road, I'd see 2 trucks, you know, so I basically had a 50% chance of, like, one of them hitting me, you know. And it was a really scary day, but it didn't scare me enough to stop. You know, I've had friends that have died around me because of overdoses, people that would swear that they'd never ever have touched drugs. Like, one of my closest buddies, I lived on the streets for probably 4 or 5 years, and he was my buddy for about 10 years. He never took drugs. He thought they were horrible. He likes his drink now, alright, but he never ever touched them. And 3 years ago, then he died of a heroin overdose when he mixed it with drink. That's the sad reality of it. Like, it's that I know a good few people. Another one was off his head and he robbed from an off license to get away from the security guard. He jumped in the river and he died. So, and that's only just a couple. Like, I've been very close to overdosing myself a lot of times because there was never any stopping for me. There was never any enough. It was as much as I could get. And the reason I'm alive today is, like, because I didn't have enough money to kill myself. So when I was younger, like, you know, you just wouldn't hear of, like, older family members that you hardly know dying, but then when I was out by myself and it was people that I used to hang around with every day, you know, it hit me, like. But I just kind of used it as another excuse then to keep taking more stuff myself to cover up the feelings that I had over it, like, you know, the feelings of grief, regret, remorse, that I couldn't have done anything, you know, guilt that I was still here and they weren't, you know. And it at the time I convinced myself it didn't have a big effect. I convinced myself that everything was fine, but it really wasn't. Like, you know, the drugs were just a way of just blacking out so I could forget absolutely everything on a daily basis. I would have known both of my mates' mothers, like, but I hadn't seen them since. You know, I don't think I could ever face them. The graveyard in Tralee, every time I pass it, I know my buddy's in there, but I just haven't been able to visit him yet. Every time I pass it. And my other mate, I'm reminded of constantly. You know, he was a really, really nice bloke. Like, he wasn't a scumbag at all. He just had his drink problem. That was it. Like, and I got into a relationship then, so that kind of severed our connections. And then a year later, he went on to die. You know, so I had a lot of guilt around that. That maybe if I was on the streets, he wouldn't have touched any of that stuff. So, like, the stigma that I find it probably been most harmful is the attention-seeking side of it. And although there is that side of it, probably a very small percentage of people that just do it for the attention. Like, there's a serious situation behind that, like, whether it's for attention or not. Like, you know, overdose is a really serious thing. Like, and I've known people that have done it for attention reasons, crying out for help, and they haven't got that help, and then they've gone on to kill themselves. Like, you know, whether it be through drugs or suicide, like, you know. So it's always a frightening thing when somebody does try to overdose, like, and just some people just don't take it seriously enough. People think it's dirtier to die from heroin than it is, but it's all the same. Like, from my experience, the head shop drugs are, if any, just on par with all the illegal drugs. Like, I would have taken them myself, and my head was not right after it. Like, and I would have been 25 or 26 when I took these. Like, and I'm just shudder to think that 15-year-olds were able to walk into a shop and pick these stuff up, you know. And it was stronger than any stuff that I'd probably ever taken. Like, but I distinguish no difference from the two of them, whether they're legal or whether they're illegal. They both have the same effects, like, which is they kill people. Like even in the drug world, there's like different levels there's different levels, you know, that people look at. Like you'd have like the cannabis and drinking level, and the next level would be like cocaine, ecstasy and acid and all them, and the bottom level then would kind of be heroin, like, you know. So even people, I did it myself for a lot of years, that were taking cocaine and I'd never touched heroin, going, yeah, but I'm not like them. So it was easy to rationalise and, you know, say they were the worst, you know, I was doing better for myself. But I ended up like that as well, like, but we're all the same, like, we're all the same, all chasing the same thing. We're just using a different means of getting there, like.
We would like to thank the family members and service users who participated in the making of this production. If you have in any way been affected by issues raised, please contact the Drugs and Alcohol Helpline on 1-800-459-459 or contact drugs.ie.